Hello, everyone. I am Kronos, and today we are going to be starting a new series of the Achievement Hunting 101 Game Club. We are playing OXENFREE. And for those who do not know, OXENFREE is a point-and-click style adventure game with a very strong narrative featuring teenagers on a deserted island and the things that they encounter there. To join me for the discussion that is going to be for our game club here this week, I have with me Carpe Adam 79
Hello.
and Freemhole.
Hello, everybody.
So, guys, I know it is very, very early for any kind of overarching experiences, but I would like to know what you guys think so far.
How about I go first? So, this was one of those games, and because of all of the critical praise that it had received, it was on my list of when you get a chance, this is a top priority game. You should play it and play it to completion. Make sure you're not confused by contests or pulled away to do other things. Like, you want to focus and do this. But I will admit, because this game starts with the letter O, I tend to save it for months where the gamer tag challenge requires me to get an O. And so I've always just kind of pushed it off. And so seeing this game club pop up was like, this is it. This is the perfect opportunity. And I am super excited to get into it because of all the wonderful things I've heard. Adam, where are you at?
Yeah, I know just from listening to different podcasts, like around the time that the game actually came out, it's something that I've wanted to play, but just something always gets in the way because there's always something new coming out. So I'm glad that this came up just to kind of force me to finally give it a shot.
Totally agree. I want to add that like what's been also very nice that I've maintained relatively spoiler free, so I don't have a clue of what's coming up. The only thing I know is that at some point I'm going to see someone else's gamer tag. That's the only thing that I know is going to happen.
We asked you guys to play the first 45 minutes, maybe hours worth of the game to a specific point so that we're all at the same point and can discuss what we've done so far. And everyone in the community, who even they were not here today, has had that opportunity as well and can hear us talking about it and relate their own experiences with that. So the game starts with our main characters, several of them, on a ferry boat heading to Edwards Island. And they're taking this ferry boat because that's the only way you can get to Edwards Island. And we meet our first couple of characters. We meet Alex, who is our main protagonist, and her friend from many, many years, Ren, and Alex's brand new stepbrother, Jonas. Ren is a very talkative, hyper diminutive young man, and Jonas is a more laid back, certainly than Ren, kind of cool guy, but he feels uncomfortable. He's not real sure that he belongs here, and the fact that he is the brand new stepbrother in sort of awkward circumstances makes this whole thing play out a little bit strangely for him. The difficulty that I had when I first started playing this game was that I didn't know any of these characters, and any game where they're going to introduce a cast of characters and throw them at you very, very quickly runs into the same kind of problem. You have to introduce these characters quickly, and you have to make them hook. I had a hard time paying attention to who the characters were as they were introduced to me, so I'm curious how the introduction worked for you guys.
Well, I absolutely echo what you say, where, you come into it, and to be honest, like, you saw the three characters, I didn't even know who I was playing as, because at that point, you're not introduced to any controls or anything, and so
Right.
I feel
Yeah.
like I'm watching a cutscene, and then all of a sudden, it's like, oh, wait, I can move. Oh, I'm the blue-haired with the ponytail. Oh, that makes sense now. Okay. So going into it, and you see your dialogue options, and, a lot of them are just the way kids would speak, right? Really non-committal, maybe just, some of them can be sarcastic, some can be serious, and say, okay, so you can kind of shape how you want to go. Great. At this point, I'm not even sure where I fall with Alex on how I'm going to approach this. I've taken a pretty consistent approach of being sarcastic and flirty, but to your point, not knowing the backstory, I thought like me and Jonas were gonna be likers. Like, I was like, oh, okay, I have to pick between these two dudes. I'm gonna go with that love interest. And it's like, oh wait, that's my stepbrother. Okay, that's weird. I don't know how that's gonna play out, but and especially as we continue, we get off the boat. At this point, I didn't even pick up that it was her stepbrother until we got way onto the island, and I was like, oh boy, okay, yeah, I was playing this completely wrong. Alex, you completely misunderstood the situation.
Yeah, I was kind of the same way. When it first starts off, it kind of just dumps you in to the style. And I wasn't really sure what was going on either. I was thinking cutscene as well. And there were a couple of dialogue options where I even missed entering an option because I just wasn't prepared for how quickly it was going to move and what was going on. And I'm trying to figure out, do I walk around the ship? I see I can walk around. Okay, should I go somewhere? Should I go up to the next level? I don't know. I was just really trying to figure out what was happening, and I'm trying to listen to the conversation, and Ren is like just all over the
He's
place.
a mile a minute.
It's like, holy cow. I mean, after that opening period, it's like, man, I guess it will make sense to go through this 3 times.
I do like the
because I'm
fact
sure I missed a lot.
that you can interrupt, because I recall during, as you mentioned, you're walking around the ship, you have freedom to move, and they're still chatting. And I remember like, oh, I'm just gonna go upstairs. These little white circles, those are interact points. I go see what that is. And so Ren and Jonas are having this conversation. I'm like, hey, there's a ship's wheel up here. I just completely butt into the conversation, and some of them will catch back up and restart that dialogue, but others, like if you read a sign, like it'll just cut off whatever that conversation was, considering it done. And it's like, oh wait, no, I like the fact that I'm not hearing repeat dialogue, but I'm also like, oh, did I miss something? Did I talk too soon? Did I, it's super fascinating how this conversation mechanic works.
Yeah, Night Studios did a really excellent job of handling both the dialogue tree and those dialogue interactions. You can't really break into the important ones, but you do have a lot of playing around opportunity to change how the dialogue flows and a lot of the feel of those conversations. It feels much more organic when you do that. It feels like something that would actually happen in a conversation. How are you experiencing this game? This game is available in a variety of formats. I played it on my Xbox, and I played it with a controller in my hand. The controller has a fairly interesting vibrate feature, so do you have vibrate on your controllers? I had my headset on when I played. I think that this game benefits from having had me play it with the headphones on. Are you listening to the sound coming out of your TV, or do you have headsets on? How immersive are your experiences right now?
I am playing in the dark of my living room with a vibrating Xbox One controller with a headset on by myself in the middle of the night. So I think
that's the best choice.
I am well engrossed in this experience.
I was the same except for the headset. I was just kind of listening to the TV audio, and I kind of feel like that made it a little bit harder to follow to a degree.
Do you have the subtitles
on? Yes.
The first choice that you really have in the game is brought to you by Jonas. He offers you a chance to speak alone for a few minutes to check things out and asks Ren to go on up ahead. You can stick with Jonas and have Ren go on up ahead, or you can stick with all 3 of them, and they stay together for the remainder of that scene. Which way did you guys choose?
I said, Ren, take a hike. I gotta go talk to Jonas, because as you recall, I thought maybe me and Jonas were gonna hook up. So, so I had a completely different connotation for why we were talking alone. But suffice it to say, I said, beat it, Ren. Go jabber up on that cliffside.
That's funny because I actually picked up on the relationship earlier than you did, I think, but I still made the same decision. Told him to go ahead just because there was some tension there.
Yeah.
With Jonas, so I just wanted to go ahead and take that minute to let him get off his chest whatever it was he needed to get off his chest, which it ended up being nothing. Yeah. Really.
And then you have your 3 options of, how do you want to respond? And like just looking at those and thinking, what the hell backstory is going on with this guy? Because you got, have you ever been to jail? Or what about your dead mom? And I was like, I don't know what's happening here. So I went with, nice view, huh?
Yeah.
You mentioned earlier that the choices were very non-committal, very teenager-esque, and yet that dialogue choice is both giving you a ton of extra information about who Jonas is and his backstory, while also being something that can be very provocative. I ended up picking the "so I heard you went to jail" one because it just seems so absurd as a question and a statement. It's like, well, if you're going to call me back and take me away from spending time with my friends, we're going to go there. We're going to have this conversation and hash it out. You want to talk to me and say I've been cool? Well, then here's what cool looks like to me.
That's funny.
Yeah, see, I did not want to go there. I left that one alone, and I kind of thinking back, I kind of wish I had.
Yeah, you got 3 playthroughs.
Yeah, just maybe to get a little bit, but I didn't want to be a jerk.
Yeah. Yeah.
I was like, you'll have an opportunity to be a jerk.
Yeah, that's what I have heard that. But yeah, I got the feeling that, okay, so he was in jail. I probably don't want to mention that before I'm pretty much alone on a deserted island with him. So
Yeah, that seems like poor timing for this conversation to come up. Certainly.
Yeah.
yeah, definitely.
Hey, quick question. So before we got off the boat, you had that first photograph where you take that selfie. Can you
Mhm.
decline that
Mhm.
and not be in that picture?
You cannot. No.
Okay, so you no matter what, you are in that picture.
You are in that picture. You're in all of the pictures. The picture is a mechanic that'll come up later on as well. I didn't want to be in the picture. I didn't want to go be a part of anything that Ren was having to do. Ren, as a character, annoyed the heck out of me. That Motormouth personality, I just wanted to punch him.
So
And so when he says, come over here and take a picture, I did not want to have anything to do with that. So I tried very hard not to take that picture. Eventually I had to. And that's the thing. When we talk about video games are all about the player having agency.
Yeah.
And sometimes the only agency we have for these forced decisions is to not play. And I wanted to play the game, so I went and took the picture.
this is the perfect time to tell you who I envision Ren to be. And this is a little bit of a deep cut, but those Simpsons fans out there might recognize. He reminds me of Artie Ziff, the old prom date of Marge Simpson, who was that billionaire, voiced by John Lovitz, who, like, he just became an obsessive stalker. But he had that curly hair, and he was a tiny, diminutive guy, super insecure, but talked like a million miles a minute. So, like, I'm just picturing this Artie Ziff character portrayed as Ren, and because of that, and the same comment you had there, Kronos, like, it just rubs you the wrong way, and you're like, God, just get out of here.
Yeah, if the game hasn't been telling me that he's my best friend since early childhood, I can't imagine that Alex, as I'm playing Alex, would want to have anything to do with this guy.
Yeah, I still envision him still having a toddler penis.
What?
Did you not have that dialogue?
So Ren mentions that he'd been friends with Alex for long enough that he had seen her in the bathtub.
Gotcha.
And
Yeah.
it wasn't even weird or sexual or anything like that. And that's still what he imagined that she looked like under her clothes now. So that's the kind of character
Gotcha.
that Ren is. He's willing to say these things in public. Let's move forward and meet the rest of the characters as well. We can get the entirety of the crew here, and we can hear more from Ephraim about the other deep cuts that are your character archetypes. We get through the town, get over the fence, and head towards the beach. But before we can get to the beach, we need to make our way through our first of many winding paths which allow conversations to unfold. And we meet the remainder of our crew. We meet Clarissa and Nona. And Nona is the girl that Ren has a crush on, and Clarissa is the girl that Nona brought because she didn't want to come and be with Ren by herself, basically. She is the wing girl.
Kronos, she is the wing bitch.
Okay, fair enough. Clarissa is a very, very divisive personality in this. She is super aggressive.
Oh, yeah.
And the fact that she is so aggressive really turns people off. You'll get to know a little bit more about some of these things later on, and I think personally that it doesn't excuse a lot of her behavior, but we start to understand where she's coming from better. But right now, she is super aggressive, and we don't like her very much, and that's completely expected.
Yeah, and it was great because of that aggressiveness, it had completely, like, it just made up my mind on how I was going to treat her, and so I've been consistent with that in just treating her like trash and being like, I'm not going to take your garbage. And so my Alex absolutely hates Clarissa and, like, will go out of her way to put her down.
Wow. See, I went a little bit different with it. Like, I can't stand her for sure. I mean, she's just, from the very beginning, she was just being really rude and nasty. But I was kind of more trying to de-escalate the situation,
Sure.
I guess you could say. So trying to, avoid the conflict as much as I could. But it seemed like no matter what I did, she wanted to fight.
Yeah. So this, to me, and this, my archetype for her, is that this is the Rachel McAdams character from Mean Girls, the ringleader of the
gosh.
Mean Girls. And so the only way to get her is to put her in her place. And so that's how I approached, and that fed into my narrative here.
So what are your archetypes for the remainder? So for Nona, for Alex, and for Jonas, the three we haven't covered yet.
So, in my playthrough so far, there has not been, for me, a lot of interaction with Nona. And so, this likely could evolve, but as it stands now, she reminds me of Raven from Teen Titans. Very, very soft-spoken, quiet, reserved, intellectual, but, like, something really interesting behind there that I'm looking forward to getting to know better. That's where I approached Nona.
I didn't really feel like I interacted with Nona much. She was very quiet. She didn't really, and I really didn't figure her out yet.
Yeah.
Really, the only chance you have to interact with Nona at this point is on the beach, which is our next scene. As we've climbed over the fence, we've gone around the winding path, we end up on the beach, and we sit and we talk, and we eventually play a game that's called Truth or Slap.
Yeah, and I felt like I messed up that whole dialogue there. I felt like there was more there than what I ended up with because of a decision I made.
Each of the paths has a fair amount of information in it.
Yeah, I got hit with the whole thing, and I was refusing to play, and I ended up not picking a dialogue option, and so then Clarissa said that I lost basically, and so she wanted to slap me, and I was like, no, I'm not going to come over there and let you slap me. So I just ignored it pretty much the whole time until they finally moved off of it. But I was like, man, I felt like there was a lot more here that I just totally missed because of missing that option. Because I wanted to answer, but I was trying to figure out what I wanted to say, and by the time I did, it was too late. I feel like I guess I understand why it forces you to move quickly, but sometimes I wish these games would just slow down and let you analyze the situation a little bit. But I get it. If you're in the moment, you don't have time to analyze it that much either. So you kind of have to answer. But
It forces a new and more raw reaction, and I think that is a benefit from it. But
Agreed.
Yeah,
it moves
that's
very quick,
true.
especially when you're supposed to know more about the situation. If you are actually Alex, you have 10 or 15 years of history with this game
Yeah.
already.
Yeah.
If you know Ren, then you know what he's like, and you've put up with this for long enough. You have the backstory. You know Edward's Island. You don't have to be in the situation that we are, where we're trying to process all this new information and then also making a snap decision. So it puts us at a disadvantage as gamers, but it does put us in interesting positions. And interesting choices are some of the things that make games fun. And sometimes no decision is an interesting decision as well. Because even though you had a situation where Clarissa wanted to slap you and you didn't see some of these other paths, that experience was perhaps very true to how Alex might have been in a situation like that. If you're a teenage girl and the person who has been a thorn in your side for the past 3 or 4 years is really being aggressive to you and you are not trying to bite back, then just ignoring it all makes perfect sense. Just stay out of the situation as best you can.
So I'm trying to remember because was the question to Alex? The question to Alex wasn't the first one, right? That somebody else kicked it off, and you had to interact with
Yes.
that. And so your question with Alex was because I went ahead and answered, and so I got like 3 more other. I had to ask somebody else a question, and I kind of kicked around a little bit. So it's funny to hear you say like, "Nah, I was out. I don't want to play this stupid game," because I fully engaged in it, and I'm trying to remember the order of events that happened because hearing your side of the story was like, oh boy, I don't even know how that would have worked in my playthrough.
The very first question is asked of Ren, and they want to know how he feels about Nona.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah.
I hid his little secret. I told a fib.
You were the true friend, because he
Yeah.
actually
Yeah, I
cool
was the
about it.
same. Yeah.
Yeah, I was.
Yeah, I didn't rat him out.
I like it. So did you guys play the Mary Screw Kill game? Was that part of your dialogue options?
Yeah, that was one of the options, but that was the thing I refused.
Okay. Yeah, I went ahead
refused to do it.
because it was Ren asking, okay, Mary Screw Kill, you got to pick Nona, Ren, or Clarissa. And I was like, well, this is easy. I was like, I'm going to marry Nona. And she says something like, oh, she's nice and quiet, really sweet. I like her. I'll screw Ren because for me, Alex is heterosexual, and so he's going to choose the male option. And he's like, and then her comment is like, oh, it'll be you're like my best friend, so it won't even be weird. And then there's like a pause. And you're like, that leaves, and Clarissa jumps in like, yeah, I get it, because I'm gonna go outright and kill Clarissa. And it was like, this is perfect. I love this. That's funny that that didn't come up in yours.
Yeah, it came up for mine, but I refused to do it, and that was kind of part of the whole thing that happened. So I'm definitely I'm looking forward to my second playthrough because I'm going to do things much differently. I can tell already.
So then, was Clarissa going on that long exposition question to Jonas? Did that happen in both of your playthroughs then?
She's actually asking it of Alex, but yeah, it's about Jonas. It's for Jonas's
That's
sake,
right. That's
essentially.
right. That's right. Because like every time I had an opportunity to interrupt her, I'm like, "Is there a question? Hello, like what are you getting at?" And like I would keep cutting her off every chance. Like she'd go on these little tangents and get around to it. And then it finally comes to the decision of like there's the one that says truth. And then there's like two other options where you can kind of dismiss the whole thing. And I went ahead and I told the truth about, and this was me learning for the first time about my own dead brother. I was like, oh, okay, I guess I see why, where this whole family situation's coming together with Jonas and Alex and their parents and things, right? We got dead mom, we got dead brother, all sorts of, trying to piece together this backstory that we're only getting little snippets of.
Moving on, we finish up the Truth or Slap, we leave the beach, and we move on to the cave mouth. And we learn, we've had an opportunity to play around with the radio earlier. You don't really have to, but this is the first time where you have to, and you really experience the radio tuning mechanic. You go to the mouth of the cave, and at various locations, you tune your radio to different frequencies, and weird stuff starts to happen.
Yeah, it was weird. Well, so I was playing with the radio, and when we first landed, and there was like 3 radio stations, and then at that apparently it was a submarine propeller. It looked like some sort of gray rock with a bird on it. But I sat there and listened to the whole historical documentary of the submarine propeller, and I was like, wow, this is really rich in backstory. Like, what the hell? And to the point where I think when Ren was trying to say, hey, tune into that radio show so I can hear my band or whatever, and I was just dinking around with and he started yelling at me because I wasn't getting to his station fast enough. He's like, come on, no, it's 89, go down to 89, and he was getting really frustrated with me. And so when we first open this get to the cave mouth, and I'm just playing around the radio, there's still the weird beeping, which sounds like weather stations or something, and it's like, well, okay, nothing's really happening here, and I'm moving the dial all around, and then all of a sudden when you start hitting those things, and if you're not, because I was moving it quite a bit, and so the light would kind of flicker and come on, so I never kept it there long enough it's like I was almost trying to tune it in, like that Batman door opening mechanic, and I think it's a little easier than that, but it was interesting when they kept hitting, and it was like, oh, where's the next one, and you'd find it, and boom, the light would shoot out, the shaft of light would come through. It was really neat.
This is a really good time for me to just briefly mention that I have a particular phobia of old-style radios, and white noise is a thing that can get to me. So this is a game that is starting to be creepy a little bit, and it is just getting under my skin at this point. And for the remainder of the playthrough, it was getting worse and worse for me.
100%.
It's so delightful an experience in the sense of that thing that is absolutely harmless and yet is absolutely creeping you the heck out. This game was able to do it in a way that I was able to fully enjoy. And just as a quick aside, my wife realized that I was playing a creepy game. And when I came up to bed after she was asleep, or so I thought, so I turned and I go to brush my teeth. I finish brushing my teeth, I turn around, and she does the whole jump scare boo at me.
Oh my God.
I lost it. It was she's an amazing woman.
Hilarious.
And she loves to terrorize me.
Yeah.
Okay, everyone, we have a late arrival. I want to say hello to P-Tart TX. Thank you for joining us as well, P-Tart. You've unfortunately missed out on the beginning of our conversation, but I want to bring you back up to speed. We've been talking about our experiences playing OXENFREE, and so far we have basically gotten to the point where we're just after the game of Truth or Slap on the beach. And you were one of the ones I was really hoping to get in on this conversation because your experience on the beach playing Truth or Slap was very different from anyone else's experience on Truth or Slap. But really, to get into that, I need to know more about how you interacted with the characters from the very beginning. When you were on the boat and you meet Ren and Jonas for the first time, and then later on as you're heading down the path to the beach and you meet Nona and Clarissa, what were those experiences like for you playing this game?
At first, honestly, I was a little confused because I expected it to be like a normal point and click where it stops, but then I was like, oh, it's very interactive, and then that's when I realized, oh, Thomas and I don't really need to sit together and play, a guide with this. I have really enjoyed it so far. I kind of find the character Ren a little annoying because he talks incessantly. But
Just a little annoying?
I mean, it's not like we know any long-winded people, Elroy, OMJ, but yeah, if as far as the truth or slap game, I'm sure you guys have already discussed where it alludes to Carissa pushing Alex why her parents got divorced, and I was trying to be nice to her new stepbrother, so I chose to hide the truth because it just didn't seem like something that she wanted out there.
Which is funny because I did the exact opposite.
Yeah, me too. I went ahead and said it.
I told the truth as well, but both because I wanted to know it, but also because I thought that would be more helpful to Jonas. I expected that the truth would be the kinder thing, that he had to know it eventually, one way or the other.
Yeah.
The sooner he knows, the better. But I can see your point there as well. Earlier on in the game of Truth or Slap, the first question, as we mentioned, is that Ren is asked whether he likes Nona. And I know for a fact that you answered that differently than either Freem or Adam did. So why don't you tell us a little bit about that experience?
I think part of that was I had accidentally clicked the wrong button.
That counts.
That's funny. So what ended up happening? Spill the beans.
Well, I'm trying to remember because I played this a whopping 3 days ago, and this is pre my 12-hour sleep coma that I had today.
All right, I'll tell my experience then, and it's probably similar to yours because I ended up with the same result on my first playthrough, and I know others in the community have experienced this. So what happened is that I disliked Ren so much that I was going to throw him under the bus the first chance I could. When there was a game called Truth or Slap, and I say, there's a chance I can slap Ren, get me on that. So they ask Ren, how do you feel about Nona? And he lies. And the game is, if you lie, you get to be slapped. So I have a chance to call him out on his lie. I do. And I go and claim my slap as quickly as I can. I'm right on it. So you get to slap Ren. If you slap Ren, that's your first achievement in the game.
Yes,
nice.
That is actually why I did that. Now it's coming back. Yes, as the completionist achievement hunter I am, that is why I chose to slap Ren.
Oh, it was because you knew the achievement was there and you went for it?
Yes.
You're looking ahead. That's cheating.
But yeah, getting to that as well, so Thomas and I decided to play together, and I realized it doesn't really work with this game, and following a guide doesn't really help either. So I think going forward, he and I would probably play separately and organically without the guide.
Yeah, I definitely recommend, if you haven't played the game at all yet, especially since you will have to play it 3 times, which I'll bring up a community comment about that right now, actually. Philip Wendell commented on this when he found out we were playing OXENFREE, that he said, okay, I'm going to go out on a limb here. I enjoyed OXENFREE. It's a very unique concept and genuinely fun, but I hated having to play it 3 times. He says also that the subsequent playthroughs, not the first one, but the subsequent playthroughs felt like they were sort of tacked on. And right now, it's not necessarily something that we were feeling. Adam, you mentioned that you're kind of looking forward to a second playthrough because so much is being thrown at you in this first playthrough that you don't think you've got it all yet. And I agree with that. Playing the second time is not really a hardship. It's going to be the third playthrough, I think, that really bothers most people because
isn't that the silent playthrough?
The magic starts to wear off a little bit.
Typically?
Yeah, potentially the silent playthrough. You can play the silent playthrough second or first, but most people probably play that last, yes. Yeah. Okay, so let's move on. Let's get back to the cave mouth. And we talked about how we started to tune the radio and weird stuff starts to happen. Lights start coming out of orifices of the cave at weird angles, and I don't know any situation where tuning the radio is going to turn on a light, right? Radios are receivers, not transmitters. There are some weird things you can do with interesting bits of radio theory, but ultimately, this is not how radios are supposed to behave. Nothing on Edwards Island behaves the way it's supposed to behave when it comes to radios. The radio signals don't work on Edwards Island. The radio goes dead. Where you had the situation where Ren is playing his radio station from the high school as you're coming up to the island, and it fades out as you sort of cross this barrier. There's something about the island that it has this magnetic field. So radio and this island don't work well together, and it causes some very interesting reactions and interactions throughout the game.
I didn't notice that, but now that you say it, it's like, oh yeah, that's right.
Yeah, I didn't quite pick up on that either, if I'm being honest.
Yeah, I didn't catch the that it went out on the boat either. So yeah, thank you for pointing that out, Kronos.
Don't worry, that's my job here. As the person who's played it several times, my job is to make sure I point out some of the things that are very interesting in this game, and there is a lot for me to point out. Peter, as you were playing this experience, tuning the radios, how did it work for you? Was it eerie? Was it spooky? Was it just, this is kind of weird?
I actually recently played a Cultic 9 where I was tuning radios, so it wasn't like this huge, like, scary experience. But yeah, it was a little eerie once, you got to that point where it started shaking, and it's like, uh-oh, what is going on here?
Yeah, because for me, as you know, I was more excited, like, oh, hey, it's a game mechanic, and I'm interacting with it, and things are happening. And the second that light shot out from the side, and Jonas jumped up on that hill and was like, hey, we should go in here. The adventurous Alex that I am was like, yep, I'm in, let's go. And I immediately jumped on and crawled through the tunnel, and that's when I started to regret the decisions I made for Alex.
My playthrough was actually fairly similar. I was immediately behind Jonas, and yet my reasoning was slightly different. I wanted to get as far away from Ren as possible, and Ren had made it clear he was staying on the beach.
Yeah, that makes sense.
I just wanted to get away from Clarissa.
Even further away from Clarissa. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, Jonas gets into the cave before we do, and he sort of disappears. And this is interesting because he's not really that far ahead of us, and we're chasing after him. But the cave is another windy path where we have to do some very light platforming to get across. And we see there's a chance for you to see some strange artifacts in the cave, a couple of pieces of debris or some graffiti. But these are not really super important. They're just more of that narrative richness. And eventually we meet up with Jonas, and something happens. Tell me what happened, guys.
Well, first you scared him, like your wife did to you. That was fun. But as I was walking through that cave, I was starting to, like, the tension was building there, because it was like, you could start to feel that energy come up. And as I walked in, I immediately saw the armoire and the graffiti on the side. And, I was keen on the graffiti, and I was like, oh, that's weird. What does this mean? What's going on here? And I wasn't really paying attention to Jonas. I'm like, what's he standing there for? And then he's looking up, I'm looking up, and I see the weird looking triangle. And I thought, what the hell is that thing? It reminded me of...
It's Space Invaders.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, yes, the imagery was of Space Invaders, but the concept was like watching the movie The Ring. There's that thing, they're watching it, and there's the fly in there, and, like, she's tapping at the screen and the fly, and then the fly comes out of the screen, and it was like, whoa, what the hell? That was in the TV, now it's out of the TV. And that's what this triangle reminded me of. Everything about this triangle is like, bad. I don't want it on this screen. And so my tension, my heart rate, everything is, I'm sweating. Like, this is where it starts getting real creepy. And then you can start to interact with it, and all hell breaks loose.
Yeah, Adam, if you've got a triangle on the screen and you've got a radio that tunes and causes weird things to happen, what's the obvious solution?
Exactly. But when I first saw the triangle, I'm thinking to myself, at first I was like, okay, is that some sort of just a marker for the game to let me know I'm supposed to do something? And then the characters started talking about it. I'm like, okay, so this is some kind of entity or something. So that's what I immediately did, is I just started to mess with the radio, and it started to do what it does, and that's one of those moments where I'm like, if this was real, if I was really there, I wouldn't be doing that.
Yeah.
When the thing starts, like, growing, because of I'm gone.
Did you?
You know what? It's time for us to leave.
Yeah. Did you? So I was having a hard time with the tuning mechanic, and so, like, as I was getting it, and obviously the triangle faces down, turns red, faces down, and then it starts shooting a line directly out, straight down toward Jonas, and I was like, Jonas, you're gonna get vaporized. Like, this Space Invader is going to absolutely destroy you. Why are you looking at this thing? And because I couldn't get it to work right, like, it just kept growing really slowly, and I was like, I can't believe I'm just gonna watch this dude get killed. And then all of a sudden it stopped, new triangle, and I was like, wait, what the hell's happening here? And it took me a while to figure out, I need to play with the radio some more and get that thing to grow into the giant triangle. But yeah, I thought Jonas was gonna get killed super quick.
Never before has a triangle been so terrifying.
Right?
But no, we go
Right.
all the way.
Well,
we get the full triangle.
And you
Yep.
get some options too, or at least dialogue options. I mean, clearly the end result is you make that large triangle, but, like, there's a few times when Jonas is saying, hey, do you think we should be doing this? You better believe it. We're going all the way, baby. Let's crank this radio up.
I would have never even entered the cave if it was real life. I would have stayed on the beach and probably had some
Exactly.
beer.
I would have sent Clarissa into the cave.
Yes. Yeah, Clarissa and Ren together should have went in the cave while the rest of us sat back and drank some beer.
This is
There you
definitely
go.
more interesting than a slowly dying starfish. So she did ask for us to call for her, and we don't, because we don't like Clarissa very much. But maybe it would have been better if we had. So ultimately, we make a triangle in the sky out of little triangles, and the triangle talks to us. Who
was
do you
weird.
think the triangle is? Who or what do you think the triangle is at this point?
Well, it sounded to me like it was pulling a bunch of sound bites from like TV, like broadcasts. So some entity, something that can't communicate on its own is taking other pieces of media and is putting them together to try to communicate. But the problem was, so I didn't know about the subtitles part of it, so I'm really curious if you guys actually got to read what the hell the thing was saying, because I could only make out a couple of words, and so I'm
I have
super
the whole
confused.
text right here, so I'll read it to you in just a minute, but I want to hear what you guys think it was first.
Yeah, so because I was not hearing clearly what was going on, I was super confused, but I was like, no, we gotta keep interacting with this thing. And so like I was approaching it like it was some type of alien or ghost or entity. And so my responses to it were of that probing and calm, like, hello, and what do you want? Who are you? You know, not trying to keep things as even keel as possible. I mean, the creep factor is real high when this random conversation starts happening.
I didn't at that moment. I didn't have the subtitles on yet. It was something that occurred to me later on. But my thought is, it's like some sort of maybe a ghost. Because that's the impression that I got. All the stuff that's going on that island is because of ghosts or some sort of spirits. So that lady that lived on the island,
Who just died.
there was a there was a conversation about her just dying. So I'm wondering if maybe it's her.
All right, Maggie Adler, good guess. I like that one.
My original thought was immediately went to aliens. I guess that's just kind of what I thought. But now that hearing your guys' analysis of it, I really, really like Adam's theory of the lady who just passed and it's ghosts. But yeah, my original thought was aliens, which doesn't, I feel like, make a whole lot of sense now.
I don't know. I think Aliens makes a lot of sense, especially because it does look so much like a Space Invader alien ship there when you're still to make that triangle. My first thought when the voices start talking to me was that it was Mike. That's Alex's dead brother.
Oh.
Interesting.
So I was really curious to see if anybody else picked up that option. There's a lot of different options that all make sense. Aliens makes sense to me. Ghosts make sense to me. Specifically, Adler or Mike or other ghosts all make sense to me. A demon, some sort of demonic influence also makes sense to me. So I think this is one where it's subject to a lot of interpretation, especially where we've chosen to leave the game. As we play more, we'll get to know these characters more, and we'll start to maybe find out more about these entities. A little bit of a spoiler for you guys. How much you learn is going to depend a lot on how you choose to play the game. And that's one of the things that I really love about this game, because it rewards you for playing it in different styles. You'll get different pieces of information, and sometimes having less information is going to make for a better story. So that's why I wanted to always encourage people not to necessarily play with a guide. Play it naturally. Have fun with it, because your experience will be fantastic because of that.
The flash of a scene that happens when the conversation ends really was what shapes my thought of what it was, kind of in retrospect. Where so you see, and I think we're ready to go into that section here. It's a short little clip where the two characters, Alex and Jonas, are standing at the base, and I couldn't really tell what was happening because it happened so quickly, but it looked like we were underwater, and like this something is floating in front of us, and to me it looked like a plane crash, like a sinking plane. But I don't know what you guys thought that was, or if you thought it was anything. But so in my head, I'm thinking, okay, underwater, sinking plane, triangles. Like, are we tapped into the Bermuda Triangle here? Like, is this old World War II fighter jets? And, because I'm getting this kind of, like, old vibe, especially with the World War II submarine propeller thing. So I'm on that track of, like, ghost pirates.
Nice. Fantastic.
I thought you were starting to talk about the show Lost there for a second as well.
Well, I mean, that part of that pop culture feeds into this narrative because, you know, there are some weird conspiracy type things or supernatural. I mean, it could really be anything at this point. And so I'm just trying to discern, and I'm curious what your guys' take is on that just real brief imagery after the triangle goes all kitty wampus on you.
I really don't. Sorry.
No, I do want to hear, though, you said that you had the...
So here's the script. And I'm not going to try and give it the creepy voice because that just... No, you guys heard it already. This is just the text. Sleepy time gal. Bobtail, shavetail. Hello, dear. Tell everyone hello. Sleepy time gal. Everything fine. Hope things there same. Don't know if leave is possible. Listen, Bobtail, shavetail, sleepy time gal. Is leave possible? Bobtail, leave children. My mothers. Will see them soon.
Oh, man, the hair on the back of my neck is standing up. Just hearing those
just
words.
So intense. It's nonsense. It's this beautiful, beautiful nonsense, right?
Yeah, that's aliens.
No, but I mean, it's like, you know, they're because of the fact that it's parsed from other media, like, you know, leave. Children, you know, it's like get the hell off my island. You don't belong here. The bobtail thing's throwing me off though. Like, so I'm just trying to figure out what that might mean. But
I'll give you guys a couple of clues on this one then. Bobtail is probably a reference to Alex's haircut.
oh, 'cause she got the
Oh.
pony.
So she's got a ponytail. Shavetail is a military slang term from the period of time when the military officers around here, and this used to be a military island base, used for an officer in training.
Gotcha.
Sleepy Time Gal is a reference to a ragtime piece of music that was originally written in the 1920s.
Yeah, I'm familiar with Sleepy Time Gal in terms of the song, but this seems more nefarious than that.
Oh yeah, this doesn't seem like this is a good actor. There's
Yeah.
also another possibility that we haven't hit yet. It doesn't have to have been just one person. We hear
Right.
voices, and it's different pieces of things. 'Cause it's not just one voice. It's obviously, like Freem was mentioning,
Ghost
snippets
pirates.
of radio and song. It could be multiple people talking at the same time or through the same voice or voice modulator. We just don't know.
Yeah.
Hmm.
It's interesting though, and just like you said, when you were just speaking the words, it was just chilling to hear. As of I had just played this last night, and I'm replaying the scene in my head, and it's like, oh, that was creepy.
So after the sequence that Freem was mentioning, where we are visibly underwater, we are recovered. We wake back up, and we are in a different place. We have been teleported, transported, otherwise moved to another part of the island. We are now at the Hardened Tower, and you get to climb up it and solve some light puzzles while figuring out that, hey, the beach party has kind of stopped, and everyone down at the beach has also wound up at other parts of the island, and they're not entirely sure how they got there either. What we played around with in the cave seems to have had ramifications across the entire island, not just to us.
That was weird.
Yeah, I was a little confused by it too, but I just kind of figured it was some kind. We opened some kind of portal, so that's when my theory changed from aliens to we potentially opened another dimension, and it transported us all over the island.
That still kind of sounds like aliens.
Yeah, and I was so enamored by the Dick Harden joke that I
Major Dick Harden.
Major Dick Harden. You're right. You're right. We've got a tower named after him.
That's probably why I remembered it.
You know, at this point, like I'm, you know, having continually reflected on the weirdness that had happened in the cave, the fact that everyone was all over the island didn't surprise me at all. Where it was just like, especially since we woke up somewhere weird. You know,
Yeah.
it was kind of a matter of fact thing. Like, oh, that's weird too that you're in different places. But okay, something happened. I'm really interested to find out what. And I kind of left it at that. Like, I didn't let my brain, especially since the point that we left off on where you made a decision, it was like, all right, I don't know what's going on, but this is a decision I'm making, and I'm going to go find out, and I don't need to, I'm not going to dwell on it right now because I need more information.
So at the top of the tower, eventually you get things working, and the on the island only phones start working again, and you're able to receive incoming calls from your friends to find out that they have moved. You get phone calls from Ren and from Clarissa, and this comes to the choice that I mentioned as sort of the least spoilery thing. This is where we're going to leave things off for this week's discussion, and this was the point to play through. You have to make your choice. Do you want to go and meet up with Ren quickly to get him out of his situation as he's coming off of his very, very weird high? Or do you want to go and help Clarissa, who sounds like she's kind of strung out and in a bad spot? And we know we don't particularly like Clarissa because she has been very, very aggressive towards us. But we've also mentioned that we find Ren to be annoying at various points. So I found this to be an interesting decision for us to have to make because we're choosing between people we don't like. If we had a third choice and we could say we go save Nona first, I think everyone goes saves Nona first, right?
Probably.
Absolutely.
While I disliked Ren, I didn't despise him as much as you did, Kronos. So to me, they tried to sweeten the pot by saying that, and it sounds like Clarissa is in a place that likely will help us figure out what's going on, whereas Ren is in the middle of the woods. And, so do you really want to go help that guy, or should we go and try and figure out what's going on? Because for me, I needed more enticement, because it was like, sorry, bitch, you out, and I'm gonna go help my buddy Ren, even though I don't like him. So it was less of a difficult decision for me because of the choices I had made toward Clarissa. And so ultimately, I opted to go to the woods route, or the Ren route.
Same thing for me. I went to Ren for a couple reasons. One, I just didn't care to go talk to Clarissa. But two, I figured it'd be better just to get him, and then we would all be together when we got to the place that could help us figure out what was going on, versus him being stuck out in the woods by himself while we're figuring it out. So it kept me away from the person I didn't like, but I thought it made the most sense too, logistically.
Yeah, I made a different decision than you guys. I actually wanted to go save Ren, but me being incredibly tired, I accidentally selected to go get Clarissa.
That's awesome.
Whoops.
I made the other choice as well. I went to save Clarissa, or chose to go save Clarissa, because I was so displeased with Ren. I was like, yeah, I'll take the angry, aggressive woman, especially because she is in a place where it might help out. And besides, maybe this is a way where I can find a path to repair that relationship somehow. That's a relationship that I would hope to repair, but maybe if there's any chance, this is one of the things I can do to do something about it. So I chose to go after Clarissa myself. Ultimately, you end up doing most of the same things in both playthroughs. Whether you go after Ren or Clarissa, you're going to end up in much the same place, which is a good time for us now to talk about where we should get to for next week. If you're playing along with us, please continue to do so. We would love to hear from you guys as well in the chat and Discord.
It is discord.io/AH101, and that's a 0, not an actual letter O. It's the 0.
Come join us. We have a channel open for the game club OXENFREE. We'd love to hear from everyone about their experiences in the first chunk of the game and what you're thinking about it. If you have any great pet theories about why the voices are talking to us or what they're trying to do to us, we'd love to hear it. And then join us as we play, and then we'll record next week. We're going to get back to the point where everyone's joined back up. We're going to meet all our characters, and we're going to bring them back together. Well, anyone who's still alive, at least. We'll put it that way. And
oh, boy.
Oh, spoiler.
We'll meet up at the boathouse for our next session. And I want to thank you guys, Freem, Adam, and Petart, for joining us today to get your thoughts on this. I really appreciate it, because when we have a game like this, having different experiences and being able to explore those experiences, I think really adds a lot to the experience for everyone else.
Agreed.
So again, thank you guys very much for joining me tonight.
Yeah, no problem. Thanks for having me, even though I was late.
It was fun.
Very good excuse. We understand completely. All right. Thanks, everyone. We will see you next time.
Sounds good.
Bye.
Bye.